Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Nil AI podcast. Today we have with us a Portuguese legend in the startup ecosystem. So we have Tocha. Tocha is involved in Olisipo Way, in Angel's Way, so multiple venture capital initiatives here in Portugal. He's now the co-founder and CEO of Comudel, and we will talk a bit about his startup, if that's okay. I would like to know
Of
how
course.
how it's going, and he's the host of, I would say, one of my favorite podcasts in the Portuguese business ecosystem, which is a Bitalk uh, podcast. So it's an honor for me to have you here in our podcast, Tosha.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Perfect, amazing. So let's start with this. So you are a VC. You are involved in multiple VC venture capital initiatives at multiple stages, and I guess you receive proposals from startups at multiple stages. AI is nowadays currently, let's say, on a hype. Not sure if on a fake hype, on a fact that will bring value. I hope in a hype that is bringing value because I work exclusively in AI for the last 15 years. So when you compare the current trend in AI with previous hypes we have passed, does it feel the same? Does it feel different? What will you think about that?
I think, yeah, so AI is definitely a big hype. So it's difficult to find a pitch today from a startup that doesn't include the word AI.
Yeah.
So I focus mainly on pre seed investments. So sometimes pre company, pre revenue, pre product, but always the AI word is there. I think in terms of hypes and different cycles, this is something that it's normal, right? When a new technology comes along, everyone starts adopting the technology, everyone wants to build because there's a lot of opportunity, and so you see similar traits from what you saw in the past from other kind of hypes. For example, when the blockchain was hot, everybody wanted to build on the blockchain and decentralized stuff, etc. But I think AI is a hype that it's, let's say, it has a potential that is a little bit different from previous ones, because the new dynamics that the artificial intelligence, LLMs, and all the deep learning technologies that we're seeing, the opportunities that they bring are truly revolutionary, right? Because when we were talking about blockchain, there was a segment of the market that could make sense, but AI touches on everything. And when it touches on everything, it means the opportunities are huge. And so I understand the bubble that is created. It's part of the cycles of evolution of our human society in terms of the new technology that we developed. We need those kind of bubbles because this is where the companies find opportunities, right? Of course, I think eventually we will see it slow down, but right now it's been incredible to see all the entrepreneurs building on top of AI. The thing I would say is it creates a more difficult job for investors, because then you have to really understand who are the teams that are able to execute on the visions that they propose, because it's not only about the technology. Of course, when you're building a startup, there's a lot of stuff that needs to go right. And so all the previous learnings that VCs have about how to find the right team, how to find the right market, etc., they still apply here. But then we have a new difficulty, which is understanding if the technology that the company is building is actually revolutionary or if it's just a word on the PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
And so this has been, I think, the main struggle that investors are facing, which is, okay, you have AI in the pitch deck, but what exactly does your AI do, right? How does it
Yeah.
differentiate? And also, because AI is so disruptive, it means the future is very difficult to predict, right?
Yeah.
Investors invest in startups for the next 10 years. They need to predict the future. And so when you need to predict the future, you need to have an idea of what the future will look like. And you have a lot of companies building AI tools that apply to the current world. But VCs want to invest in companies that are building for the world in 10 years. Right. And so it's very important in this kind of pitches and when the teams are presenting, understanding what is their vision for the future. Like, how will the world look like in 10 years, and why what you are building will be very valuable in that world.
Yeah.
So this is the
Yeah.
main
That's
struggle I think I see with startups.
Yeah, that's right. And, I will compare AI with electricity in a sense that is super horizontal. So you can apply AI almost on everything, the same way that you can apply electricity almost on everything. And maybe the most obvious applications are not the one that will succeed that much. And there's a very good book on that direction on predicting the future of AI, which is this one. I don't know if you have read it, Power and Prediction. It's by
No.
a team of economists. and they basically try to analyze this current trend on AI with previous trends like the steam engine, electricity, etc., and how those cycles change. So the initial application is let's just put AI on this task. The second, third degree application is how can we redefine the industry or a business model from scratch now that we have AI, and how could that be? So what kind of company will surge from there? And at
Yeah.
AI,
The big
we
the
most
difficulty here the difficulty here is that electricity is still physical. Like you need physical infrastructure,
yeah
right? And in AI, of course, you need servers, you need
yeah
GPUs, you need all of this kind of compute. But then the tools become very easy for anyone to apply them anywhere. Like they're
yeah
digital, so it
exactly.
just becomes faster. That's the big difference.
Yeah, that's exactly. And the learning curves, I guess, are faster also nowadays
Yeah,
than 200 years ago, just because of the existence of the internet, right? So it's much easier
exactly.
to widespread the technology. When we work, so at NLAI, we work with mainly with two segments, right? With already established companies, and there what I see is about mostly incremental improvements using AI on specific processes, right? Like let's take this process and let's make it more efficient. But when we go to startups, unless they are just AI washing their pitch, let's assume they are truly using AI. On which of the 9 business model canvas blocks have you seen a more effective usage of AI? It's about new value propositions. It's about tackling new customer segments, cost structure. So
Yeah. I think it's the complex part here is understanding that things will change. So the way that things operate today, they will be completely different in a world of AI, right? And so when I see companies introducing AI in their processes, it reminds me the digitalization movement. So there was a time when we had everything on paper, right? And then we moved to digital documents. And the way that companies digitalized their services was doing exactly the same that they did with paper, but they would do it in a digital world, right? So they're not revolutionizing the processes. They're not thinking about first principles and changing completely the way that they operate. They are just using the technology to improve, but sometimes this improvement, because it works better on paper, just creates more work. Right. And so
yeah,
with AI, I think it's similar. So companies that are established, they have a tendency to secure their market. So they have a position in the market. They don't want to lose that business. And so they are not incentivized to rethink the way that the economy and the way that the relationships between businesses will happen in the new world with AI. But startups have a different incentive. They are new, they don't have the market, and so the way that they look to the way that economy is operating is different. So they want to bring a new way of everything to operate by using AI. And the reality is when you have such a big change as AI, it's all these business models, they will change, right? And so
yeah,
a lot of people are talking about software as a service, right? Paying a monthly fee to use a product. In a world of AI, maybe that doesn't make sense. You want to tie the value that your client pays to you to the value that you bring to that
yeah,
client
right.
with your product. So the new business models that will emerge, we still don't know which of them will win. And so this again is the challenge, which is how is the world going to operate in 10 years and how that business model fits in that world? Does it make sense?
Yeah,
Right? And so it's a very big challenge. So I think all the traditional business models are in risk.
yeah.
And this is the
Across
opportunity.
all across all industries. Yeah, and let's say before generative AI, big companies, established companies, had let's say an advantage because they were the ones that had the data, right? Because in AI
Yes.
there is like an egg and a chicken situation, right? Like you need data to train AI models to truly optimize the process. So for a startup, generative AI was able to break up this cycle, and now you don't need that much data to start using AI to optimize a process. You can take an off-the-shelf large language model, right? And maybe it won't perform as good as one trained with billions of data points from that industry. But if your process optimization, if your business model grants you a 10x advantage, even with not much data, that's already disruptive. So startups now do not need to incur into expensive pilots to acquire data or partnering up with other companies to get their data. As long as their
I,
value proposition is quite different.
yeah, I agree with you. There is just a few exceptions, or maybe some exceptions. I don't know how many. Again, this is a world nobody knows what's going to happen. But the way, if you think about some obvious things that AI can perform. Let's say, for example, generating images, right? For you to generate better images, the more data you have, the better your algorithms will be. So if you are Shutterstock or some kind of stock images company that has already a lot of data, it's easier for you to use your own data, unless it's stolen by somebody, right?
Yeah.
That also happens in a world of disruption. So if nobody's using your data and the data is for yourself, then you can have very good models to generate those
Yeah.
images. Okay? But the question is, they're generating the images with the data that they have because they're protecting the way the market they have operates, right? They're thinking
Yeah.
about how to use AI to keep the same logic that they already have today, which is, oh, I need an image, so I'm going to ask an image. But the opportunity when there is not so much data is maybe we don't need those images, right? And we had this
Yeah.
incredible advance, for example, in 3D generated stuff with AI, right? So before we had to create a 3D of all the objects and then we can move the camera
Yeah.
inside that 3D environment. That will give us a lot of work. And today we just put an AI that can generate it, right? And
Yeah.
predict the way that the object will feel in that 3D space. So all the work that was being done by softwares that were doing 3D objects, it's not so much valuable as a startup that has a new technology that is able to simulate that. So there are a lot of opportunities for companies that don't have access to these big pools of data, but there are also opportunities for companies who are building technology and come to these big incumbents that have this data and suggest some kind of partnership, right? So big content
Yeah.
creators become more valuable. We always thought, oh, data is the new gold. Well, for AI, data is really important, right? But also, the technology that we're developing is completely different. So we don't know if tomorrow that data is going to be relevant. We're going to have AIs training AIs, right? Generating
Yeah.
synthetic content, just having feedback from humans. So it's a very unpredictable world. So my position as an investor is I want to hear what is your vision as an entrepreneur of the future of the world. What is going to happen in 5 years? How will the society operate in 10 years? And then I want to hear your arguments. And if I'm convinced and I think, yeah, it kind of makes sense, there is a big probability, or there's a significant probability that the world will be like that. And if the world happens to be that, the technology that you are building is a perfect fit. And if that happens, you become a huge company. If not, well, that's the risk that the investors take.
Yeah. Let's play this game with Comudel, right? So you have a
Okay?
value
Yeah.
proposition, which is your accountant just got fired. Oops, right? That's your catchphrase.
Hmm.
And then you say AI that creates, manages, and operates companies. So how do you see the future
Yes.
of operating companies in 5 to 10 years, and how Comudel is
Okay.
adjusted to that?
That's a great question because now I can show what everything that I was saying, right? So the point that we started is how will the economy be structured in the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years? And what we've seen by numbers is that the number of companies is rapidly increasing. So just as an example, 100 years ago in Portugal, we had 50,000 companies.
Okay.
Today, 100 years later, we have 1.4 million companies with less than 10 employees. With less than 10 employees. So these are small
Yeah.
companies. What this tells me is that the economy is passing through an atomization process. And we can also see this in startups because if we look at Craigslist, for example, and there's a famous image that shows all the categories on Craigslist. Like you see, for each category, now there is at least one company that's
Yeah.
worth more than $1 billion, right? And this means that a big company as Craigslist now has been atomized to other small companies. And this is because technology reduces heavily the transaction costs. So the transaction cost for doing a business is not just the money that you pay, but it's all the time that you need to spend in order to make a transaction to happen. And as we evolve our technology, the transaction costs get lower. And there are two kinds of transaction costs. There was an economist called Ronald Coase that had put himself a goal of understanding why companies exist. And he came to this idea of transaction costs. And he says there are two kinds of transaction costs: internal transaction costs and external transaction costs. So when internal transaction costs are lower than external, you hire internally. But when external transaction costs are lower than internal, you outsource. And that's what we're seeing in our economy. So it's becoming easier and easier to hire somebody, to hire a company that is very specific on doing something really, really well. And so they give you more value for less cost, right? And so what's we see in the economy is the atomization of the economy. This means that more people will create companies, right? And then I look at the everything I've been doing in the pre-seed investment stage. So I invested in startups, but also in traditional businesses. And one of the things that I see founders struggle is like, oh, I have this idea, I'm going to create a company, right? But then they don't know how to create a company. You need to get a lawyer, you need to get an
Yeah.
accountant. They're slow, they don't move as fast as you. But what you want to do is to build your business, right? And so you get lost in all the bureaucracy and all the laws that we have. Which, if we do like a graph of the laws that we have, the number of words we have in law,
Yeah.
it's probably a line that goes up. So everything is getting more complex because the business models of countries is to charge taxes, so they need to control the economy. And so if you look at this, what founders want to do and entrepreneurs and business owners is just focus on their business and not to take care of bureaucracy. And so that's why we are building an infrastructure with AI. It's not to write poems or to make images, it's to understand the real economy and the bureaucracy law of nation states. And by understanding that, they can support business owners to focus on what they love and leave the bureaucracy to an AI, right? So
Yeah.
this is the premise. Like, companies are increasing, people don't want to take care of bureaucracy, it's boring. Let's do an AI that does the boring stuff and you just focus on what you love.
Yeah. And if you're in Portugal, the bureaucracy increases really exponentially,
Yeah.
and the
In Europe
uncertainties
in general.
in Europe.
So like
Yeah.
Europe is the continent of bureaucracy, right? And that's why we're
Yeah.
starting here. And one of the reasons we're starting in Portugal is because Portugal is on the top 10 countries in the world with the most digitalized government services. This
Yeah.
means that by creating an AI, we can do everything digitally. We can go submit the taxes, we can pay the taxes, we can submit the forms, we can ask for everything, right? So signatures, payments, etc. And so this allows us to create an infrastructure, a new kind of infrastructure that is able to perform all these tasks. Many companies try to tackle this space, so the financial space,
Yeah.
accounting, etc. But I think the big problem that they're facing is they were trying to build different products with the same technology. And so where we are focusing today is on building technology that doesn't exist. So we
Yeah.
need an AI that can actually not hallucinate, can be proactive, and can help you proactively to manage your business. And that's
Yeah.
where we focus
I
on.
have a question around that. So when AI is good as repetitive tasks, such as, I don't know, accounting, right, classifying expenses, etc., um, tasks that handle uncertainty, but AIs hallucinate or fail sometimes. They have a margin of errors. When we hire an accountant, the accountant should be liable for the mistakes, I guess. How are you redefining that component at Comudel? Who is going to be accountable for
So
hallucinations if
one
they
of the
exist?
first one of the first principles is to create an infrastructure that doesn't hallucinate, right? So you need hallucination to have creativeness in the LLMs today, right? To be creative, you need to hallucinate. But when
Yeah,
you're dealing with laws and taxes, you cannot hallucinate the numbers
yeah,
and the dates you need to pay those taxes. So that's one of the innovative part of our infrastructure that is able not to hallucinate. But we want to get there. We'll not get there in the first day. So what we do is we are the accountants. So just like a human
mhm,
accountant, we are responsible for all the things that we do for a company. So we have humans, and the way that we're doing is reinforcement learning through humans. So we have a back
mhm,
office where the AI says, I'm going to do this, right? And then you have humans that are
mhm,
just confirming or editing and
yeah,
saying, no, you're wrong, you should do that. And it keeps learning and learning and learning. So again, the goal is not to create an AI tomorrow that will do all of this autonomously. The goal is to
yeah,
create the conditions so we can evolve the technology so that in 5, 6, 10 years we have an AI that is better than humans. Because
yeah,
if AIs play better chess, better go than humans,
yeah,
it's because they're
mhm,
better problem solvers. And if they have enough information, they can look at your
yeah,
business and say, look, Tosha, you should do this and this and this, right? What do you
yeah,
think? Say, oh, like looks like a good idea. Do it for me, right? And
yeah,
so data will be important, and getting data is important.
yeah, and even if you're talking about sensitive stuff like taxes, as long as it is better than a human at some point, and I agree it will become better than a human, your accountant will also fail, right? Your human accountant will also fail. So as long as the
Yeah,
AI fails less, you could even add an insurance policy there, and pay for the mistake. So you don't even need zero
you
hallucination
already
as
have.
long as you're
You already have,
exactly. Yeah.
right? So
So as long as
accountants
you're better
today,
than the
they need insurance, and if they make
yeah
a mistake, the insurance will cover it.
yeah
So it's the same logic. We are an accounting firm, so we have our own accountants. Okay, so when we
yeah
say fire your accountant, it's just a way to show that our accountants, we don't charge the same way that others. We charge through models that align incentives based on the value that we bring to you. So we have a new business model,
yeah.
and so I
And I
think
and I like I like that idea of aligning incentives. I actually had a note about that because I know you publicly have said this multiple times on your LinkedIn, and I think I already answered to some of those posts. I believe, and I guess you too, accountants work for the state, not for the company, right? So they are there to, so their main
pay tax.
incentive, exactly, their main incentive is to pay taxes. It's not to organize the business. That is how the accounting structure is typically built. And then if you need an advisor around accounting, that's like a separate service. But like the default
Yeah,
services,
that's a
the service that
financial
exactly,
advisor, different CFO, etc. It's not the accountant.
exactly. But
So why do we need accountants? Basically, it's employees of the state that are paid by the private companies,
exactly,
right?
they are
And
employees of the state.
they do boring work. They, to be honest, it's also not their fault, kind of, parties,
Yeah,
but they have so much manual work that they need to do that they don't have time to think about the business.
yeah, that's right.
That's what technology can solve.
Yeah, that's right. So in your case, how are you aligning the incentives? Is because your business, your revenue streams come from the margins or the gains you're generating from the company and not as a fixed cost structure?
Yeah, so the way that we want to do, and this is a something that will be in process. We cannot come to the market and
Yeah.
immediately change everything. So initially, we do have kind of a monthly fee, but our goal is to align incentives in the sense that we don't want to charge for accounting services. We want to give it completely for free, and we want to go get our commission, so our business model, on products and services that companies normally hire by bringing them the good products and services that they need. So let's say, for example, work insurance, credits. You
Yeah.
need to find a new
Okay.
electricity provider. You need to find a car for your business. So by having this critical mass, and once we start to grow, we will have an ecosystem and a network effect that will allow us to bring value to these businesses by
Yeah.
what they are looking for. And even in the future, which is the goal, is to bring them clients, right? If you are a client of Comudel and I'm a client of a Comudel and you are a, let's say, a branding agency and I need a new website, like I'm going to be talking with the AI like my friend. And I'm going to say, look, we need a new website. He's going to say, whoa, I know perfect agency. They
Yeah.
really have a really
Of
good
course.
work. Do you want me to connect with you? Right? And we will charge a
Cool.
commission by doing that link.
Because your game is not automating accounting, that is your starting point. So you bring critical mass. Your game is about the tasks that you are externalizing at this point. So if you have the full ecosystem onboarded on your platform, you can match make very fast these external tasks that you are delegating to other companies,
Yeah,
right?
and that's one of the reasons why, to start this network effect, we need to be very conscious of where we started. Like for us, it's not valuable to have a company in Portugal, a company in France, and a company in Korea, right? We need to
Yeah,
create a network effect of companies that are close to each other and that can have business together. And so that's why we're focusing on one geography, proving the technology, creating all the processes so that we can be scalable and then start onboarding different geographies really fast.
yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. What are the main challenges you are facing now building a company that is, let's say, AI first, although you still have an accounting company internally? And what are the challenges that you have been facing with the technology at this point?
Two big challenges. First challenge, talent. So AI engineers, good AI engineers that really know how to work with the fundamentals of AI. So we are building an architecture of AI, not an LLM. So we work with
Yeah,
many different open source LLMs, including DeepSeek, for example. We already have agents working with DeepSeek. We choose different LLMs based on the tasks that needs to be performed. And so we have a different architecture that requires some specific knowledge. And it's not easy to find this kind of talent. And the second big challenge that we have is hardware, right? So we need GPUs. We're not like OpenAI or Grok that needs thousands and thousands of GPUs, we are actually really efficient. But the amount of companies looking for this hardware makes the hardware very expensive and difficult to access. And so one of the things that we need is machines, because we cannot use just off the shelf open source models. We change the models. So we need our own machines and our algorithms to run on our machines. So this has been one of the challenges. And then, of course, like building this technology. So we're doing stuff that is innovative. We're submitting patents, and so we are on the forefront of new kind of technologies around the LLMs and around deep learning, and that requires trial and error and requires more time to develop than just going to the market and getting some first users, right? And so I would say those are the big challenges, but we're moving pretty well.
What about non-technical challenges? Because those, at least not so much with the startups, but with big companies, the non-technical challenges are the ones that are, I have found to be the most tricky ones to solve, like resistance to like change management, like these issues like liability, like how I am redefining the business if AI is making the calls and not a human. Have you faced any of those challenges at this point?
No. Well, of course we face some of the challenges, but it's not big, it's not a problem. Why? Because we're doing this step by step. So we're not coming to the client and saying, look, we have an AI, it's going to do your accountant, right? They
Yeah,
would shoot us, they would not accept it. So the
yeah,
way we do it is, look, we have an accountant, we show a human face, this is your accountant, right? But we have a different business model. It's cheaper than you pay right now, and we give you more value, right? And for that, we use some kind of technology. And so you'll
okay,
have some interactions with our, let's say, AIs, right? But there is always a human. You can call him, right? So it's the
okay,
same that you have today, just with a different business model. And the way that you can convince them is just by showing the value. And because we're not focused on doing paperwork, we're focused on bringing value to the business. For example, any company manages his cash flow on an Excel file, right? So all these small companies, our clients, they have an Excel file. And so
I do.
our platform, you have to, yeah, I have too.
I
And so
certainly do.
to manage the cash flow, you need to do something that's really specific for your business. And that's one of the things that we do. Our AI understands your business and builds a dashboard that is specific for you. So if you are a client of Comudel, your dashboard is different than mine. And you have a holistic vision about your business from the past, the present, and what the future might look like. So you can see, like, oh, in 3 months, I'm not going to have money. I need more clients, right? And so you have more value in this tool. And the accounting is just something that you need to have because the government says, right? But
Yeah,
managing your company, that's something you need to do. And that's what we give
of
you
course.
by also doing
Yeah,
what you don't want to do.
yeah. You need to be making the calls, and for that, you need to lower uncertainty. And if you can bring the right data and the right information to the manager, I guess that's it. That's the point. And then, how are you
Yeah. And
building
I've
this?
been doing accounting. Sorry.
Are you
Tell
integrating
me.
with the CRM to know sales, and then integrating with the accounting invoices, etc., to know expense ratios, etc.? Or
Yeah. So we're creating some of the tools we're creating internally, and some of them we need to connect with the tools that businesses already
okay,
use. And so that comes to the kind of companies that we are onboarding now, which is a very specific niche of companies that we know the challenges that they have and the tools that they normally use, so we can have all the tools that they need. But our architecture is a set of agents. So you can look at it as an orchestra of small agents that are very specific in each task. And then they have tools that allow them to interact with these softwares, with government entities, etc. So if you have a CRM, what we need to do is a specific agent that will get the data from that CRM and bring it to our architecture of agents, and they will play the symphony of creating everything that you need.
nice, nice. So you are starting in Europe, and you are positioned in Europe, both as a person, both as a company, and you are trying to solve bureaucracy. And you said that Europe is like the master of bureaucracy in the world,
It's
right?
the continent
Where's
of
your
bureaucracy.
yeah, the continent of bureaucracy? What do you think about the AI Act and the current existing regulation on AI in Europe versus other countries, other continents?
It's a complex topic. So I'm not like an extremist saying it's awful, just kill it. I'm not also an extremist saying that's exactly what we need to do. I think it's a little bit too much, but it's possible. Look, we're building something to navigate bureaucracy. So we are,
Yeah,
it's kind of our, what we like to do is to find how to deal with the bureaucracy. And so the AI Act is not that bad as some people might
yeah,
say it is. It creates some constraints, it creates some blockers, but I think they're easily overcomable if you're doing something that you understand how to do and you can work with the right people that understand the laws. I would prefer it not to be so strict, definitely, but that's not something I control. And so I have a
Yeah,
lot of problems to think about. I'm not thinking about things that I cannot solve.
yeah,
For me, it's clear that starting in the continent of bureaucracy, it's important because many of the things that Portugal does, for example, they are now being rolled over to all the countries in Europe. Like for example, for years we had certified invoices for each for the companies, right? To issue an invoice, you need to use a certified software. And all the other countries in Europe, they will use Excel to make
yeah,
invoices. But right now, you have a regulation that is implementing certified invoices in all Europe, right? And
nice.
so, by being in Portugal, there are a lot of stuff that we already do here that will be rolled over to Europe. And by making it work well here, we'll then be better positioned to get those markets.
Yeah, well, I mean, the AI Act is not as you said, it's not as strict as people think it is. And my concern is not so much about regulating or not, it's about a culture of regulation and a culture that prioritizes regulation over generating value, right? And that's I would say is my main concern. The other day, it was already like 3 years ago, an investor saying Europe became the leader of the automotive industry by building the best cars, not by building the best stop signs, right? So I think we are over focused on regulation. Not to say regulation is good or bad. It's just to say it shouldn't be the first thing that comes to our mind where we get into an industry. And by the way, I was at the AI Action Summit, and at least this cultural part, I think is kind of changing. Like Europe realize it cannot be just all only regulating stuff. It needs to slow down or facilitate the adoption of technology, and maybe losing some regulations and simplifying some regulations. At least that's the main takeaway I got from
Yeah, I think, but
Macron's
that
speech.
comes from a culture background. So Europe has always been where a place where the social state is very strong. So like protecting the most vulnerable, right? Finding policies that can bring more fairness to our societies, and that is done through regulation. And so historically, we've been a continent that creates a lot of laws, and so because of that, when new technology comes, we do the same that we're
Yeah,
used to do, right?
yeah,
But I agree with you. I think there is a lot of people and a new movement in Europe of people that are questioning this, and some of the things that are coming on the table are really interesting. For example, there is an idea to create a kind of a company that is Europe wide. So it's not a company you create in Portugal; it's a company
okay,
that's
nice.
European company. So these kinds of things, they're interesting, right? So we're trying to create this big market, which is very difficult because we have so many different cultures, different languages, and different
Yeah,
stages of economies. But we're doing that work, and we're trying to make a uniformizing all these countries, and this will create a bigger market. This will create a bigger opportunity, right? So United States, okay, they have all the states. They also have a lot of
yeah,
bureaucracy. It's not that easy to go from
yeah.
one state to another, but it's English, right?
It's
So
more
they
easy.
all speak
Yeah,
same language. They're all very similar culturally. So the markets for startups, they become really big, and I think we're moving into that direction in Europe, and it's gonna happen because we have no other option.
yeah, yeah. The only way to compete will be that. What about the 200 billion investment on AI from Europe? Do you think it will be a new Portugal 2030, like where money is not necessarily efficiently spent? Do you think
Yeah,
this will be
again, it's a
properly managed?
cultural thing. It's a cultural thing in Europe, right? We used to do a lot of these programs of supporting and financing the economy. So it's just normal that they created this. Is it going to be incredible? No. Is it going to be bad? No. It's just going to unlock a lot of money for, I'm sure there will come out some companies that will use it really well and that will give them a big advantage. And I'm sure there will be a percentage of it that will be used for other not so
Yeah,
interesting stuff. Overall, I think it's good because it creates more conversation, right? Oh, there's 200 billion. Why are they doing this? Why
yeah,
is this important? And so it creates a conversation about this, and then eventually it brings to measures that are even more positive.
yeah. And I guess some of those ideas will survive and will thrive, and
Yeah.
some others will just die. But we also need exploration if we want them to have exploitation of those ideas. And what do you think should be our so France is kind of leading the AI landscape in Europe. They have energy, nuclear energy, they have good data infrastructure, etc. What do you think should be the Portuguese positioning on AI? Should it be vertical, like on applications, like for example, Fitsai has been doing, or Sword, or are you more into we should be building the next Amalia, the next LLM, and that should be our approach as a country?
I think we should go to what our strengths are. And our strengths is becoming attractive, right? We are already attractive by nature. We are a country by the sea. We have great weather. We have great food. We have great quality of life. And we have a lot of foreigners that are moving to Portugal because they're looking for good life quality. So I think what we should aim at is at attracting more of these people. Like if we can have the best AI engineers in Portugal, even if they're working
Yeah,
remotely to France, I don't care.
yeah,
That's just short term because eventually they'll create a life here, they'll have kids here, and then it's what I'm already seeing. People who are here, they want to give back to the ecosystem, back to the economy, and they start creating the next company. And they say, "Why would I create a company in France? I live here. My kids are here. My wife is here.
yeah,
Everybody's here.
yeah,
Let's create a company here." Right? And this is the it's a long-term strategy. So it's not going to give results in 2 3 years, but it's going to give amazing results in 5 10 15 years. So we don't have the strength to compete in creating energy, right? So we
yeah,
cannot build nuclear
yeah,
nuclear
yeah,
or whatever other kind of energy there is. We don't have enough money to build huge data centers. The only advantages that we have is what we already have: good weather. We have a lot of ocean, right? And
yeah.
there may be an opportunity in the ocean because our ocean area is huge and we're
Yeah.
not using it for
Yeah,
anything.
it's larger
I
than
think
Europe, maybe.
some idea from there.
Yeah, I was saying that maybe our sea is larger than the entire Europe. I don't know. I don't know the numbers, but it's huge opportunity out there. So you will focus on attracting the talent. What can Portugal do to attract AI talent? It's about incentives for people of that field to move into Portugal. So lowering taxes will be a good point, I guess. Um, and you were talking about that last week about how we tax people if it is on income or if it is on expenditure. But if we want to if we want to attract good AI talent, and if we don't have good AI companies, how can we solve that problem as a country?
The way I look at it is good AI companies will come later. We don't have good AI companies today. You cannot create good AI companies by a decree of the government, right?
Yeah,
But people who work, everyone, all humans, the life is not just about the work. You have a lot other
yeah,
stuffs that you need in your life. So I work, but I have a family. I have fun. I go out to
yeah,
eat. I go having whatever, right? So I have a lot of other activities that I do, and that normally is tied to the word quality of life. So I think our
yeah,
golden word should be quality of life because that's what we can propose. And once you have good life
yeah,
quality, you'll say, well, come live here because you can work anywhere today, right? So maybe okay, you need
yeah.
to go to France 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a year. Okay, you can go there, but you want to
That's
live
okay.
here. You want your kids to grow here, and if we do that in 10 years, we're unstoppable. So we
Yeah,
cannot compete in the other way right now because we don't have the talent here. We don't have the money. But by creating these conditions, we will bring the talent. We will bring the money.
yeah. I guess you are right. I mean, I am the living evidence, the living proof that that's true. I am Venezuelan. I'm not Portuguese. I moved here 12 years ago because quality of life.
Yeah,
My family was originally Portuguese, and then where I had to choose, like cost of living was pretty low 12 years ago in Portugal. Housing, everything was super cheap. Good quality of life. It's easy to raise kids in Portugal. Like the culture is like family friendly for you to raise kids. So it's uh, economically it's not a good option if you work in Portugal and live in Portugal, but I mean, I work in AI, so you can work for
yeah.
anywhere in the
You
world.
see, so the strategy to become a leader in AI has nothing to do with AI. It has to
Yeah,
do with creating a better, more efficient government so that we can have more competitive taxes, creating better schools,
yeah,
creating museums, restaurants, theaters. So all of this that creates quality of life, it's what will make us win in AI. Because we already have the fundamentals, right? So if we were
yeah,
Antarctica, like or Iceland, Maybe that would be that would be much more difficult to do. But
for
we
sure.
are already positioning in one thing, which is next to the ocean in Europe. So there's so many
Yeah,
advantages that we need. Just let's start creating better schools, right? Let's
yeah,
create more parks, better quality of living, more beautiful buildings, more green, more trees, and more gardens in the city. Let's focus on that. That will attract the people that matter.
yeah. And there is one point that people I don't think appreciate enough: the single 1 hour difference we have with Spain and the rest of Europe closes us to, so make us closer to this United States and give us 1 extra hour of time zone overlap with the United States, but still we are compatible with the rest of Europe, Middle East, etc. So while people say like Portugal is on the tail of Europe, I say like Portugal is on the center of the world, right?
Yeah.
And I could be on the center of the other side of the world. But I mean, here we can work easily with the Western ecosystem, much better than Spain, Belgium, etc., that has 1 less hour, and that hour less seems to be nothing, but can be a lot of when somebody's trying to understand where to live in.
And so if you're talking about hours, it means for you it matters the remote work. And again, we look what is the world in 10 years? Right? So we've seen, okay, the remote work movement is slowing down a little bit and is moving backwards a little bit, right? Because I think maybe
Yeah,
we went too much. So this is like a pendulum,
yeah,
like so we were
yeah.
here, then in COVID we went here, and now we want to go back to the middle.
I
But
mean,
anyway, with technology and everything that we're developing, what will happen is you can work anywhere in the world, and so the time zone becomes important. Like, are people in New York getting up? What time is it in your place? Right? How many
yeah,
hours do you have that overlap with the teams that are all over the world? So this will become important. So that's why the time zone is also something that's really good, and that's something you cannot change by degree. By decree,
yeah,
it's like physically we're here. So
yeah. We
let's
are
take
physically
advantage.
here. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. If you want to maximize song exposure, you need to have this time zone. It's not
yeah.
something that you can change.
And the sun,
What
the
is?
amount of sun that we have is incredible,
Yeah,
right? We're the
yeah,
most,
yeah,
we're the country in Europe with biggest exposure of sun.
yeah. I don't like that much the winter. I'm from Venezuela, and the weather was more stable there. So when you say that you have a good weather here, I say like, I'm not sure about that, because coming from a tropical country, it's kind of tricky to have
Yeah,
short days on winter, etc. But in Europe, we for sure are the top country in terms
you
of
should try to go to
sun
London.
exposure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Having in London, yeah, it's completely different. Yeah, for sure,
Yeah,
that for sure. What would you say is your most controversial thought about AI?
I don't think AI is gonna. I don't think AI is gonna like destroy our society. I think that's the most prevalent thought that is out there right now. So like AI is going to take all the jobs and going to do all this and that, etc. I believe in a term that I mentioned several times, which is Homo sapiens artificius. So I think human race is evolving. We were Homo sapiens sapiens. Now we're going to be Homo sapiens artificius. And I believe that the AI will be humans, and the AI will become a new kind of species. The humans will disappear, but there won't be just AIs. It will be a human AI cyborg or whatever you want to call it. And I think some people have a difficulty to accept this, but I believe it's inevitable, right? So we will have superpowers. We will be able to do stuff that's unimaginable today. So like, just look 50 or 100 years ago. What are we going to be able to do in 100 years? Uh, and so our biological bodies eventually will become obsolete, and it's not because the AIs will exist just by themselves. They will. So we will have some AIs around there that are alone. But the most important actor in the economy, in the society, will be the Homo sapiens artificius, which comes from humans.
Yeah, and if you
I'm not
combine
sure if
AI
that's,
as information processing with robotics, then
yeah,
that becomes like
unstoppable.
humans empowered by robotics, right? Would you like to live in that world? Would that
Yes,
be a world that you enjoy? Yes.
very much. And that's why
Why?
I think it's a controversial idea. It's not maybe so much because nobody thought about that. It's just because when you say it, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And my wife
But I'm
has
like
asked me
I'm
multiple
like
times if
99.9% certain that this will happen. and I'm 100% excited for it to happen.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't implant a chip on my head, at least for now, until a lot of people have implanted it first. So, but I think I would like to live on a world of augmented intelligence.
And if you
Although,
want augmented intelligence, you're gonna have a chip in your head.
yeah, that's the thing. So I will need to con.
But when
I
we
will
came
need
out
to.
with televisions in electricity, everybody was afraid. Televisions are
Yeah,
making us zombies. People are sitting in their living room and looking at TVs. All technology shifts.
yeah,
We're scared about them because it's an unknown. Uh, but the point is not if we're scared or not. Of course, I have some things that can concern me. The point is that it's unstoppable. Like it's inevitable. So if it's
yeah.
inevitable and it's something that you cannot change, just embrace it.
Now let's try to do the opposite game. Let's try. So you are in favor of the Homo sapiens artificials. I am also in favor of it, and I'm looking forward to it. Try to argue against that word. What will be your argument?
I don't. I cannot argue against that word because to argue it will. Okay, I can, but I have to go against all my beliefs. So I'll try to do it. So we've been evolving for many millions of years and having a way of life that has nothing to do with the way of life that we had in the last 200 years. We are, as a species, not ready to do this. If we continue to change at the rate that we change, we will collapse because the human brain will not handle all the changes in the new world that we are building. Our brains, and you can see on the mental health numbers, people are more depressed, people don't know what to do, too many stimulus, people don't know where to look at. And that's because our brain still works like we were in caves, right?
Okay.
And so we are changing too fast, and this will be our destruction.
Okay.
I think this
And
is the
what will
argument.
be? Yeah. I believe that will be the. So you can go two ways. You can go biology, or you can go society and welfare. Like by doing so, you will destroy jobs, etc., and people won't be able to adapt that fast to that
Yeah,
new
but the
to that
part
new
of the
world.
jobs is not catastrophic because we had big crisis, right? So what
Yeah.
happens is, okay, AI takes all the jobs. Okay, the other point is we'll be slaves, right? So AI takes all the jobs, then they're going to use humans as slaves. But my question there is, why would they need humans? Humans are not effective. They can build robots that work 24/7. Why do they need humans? Like the only argument that I've seen that makes some sense in that point is the
Yeah.
matrix idea, which they use humans as a battery, right?
Yeah.
But super intelligence, the best battery they find is humans. Like go to the sun,
Yeah.
right? So they're gonna find much better ways to do to create energy. So in a world that we become slaves of AI, it's like just the end of human race, and it's born a new race, and that race is digital AI, whatever. They have robots and etc. They go multiplanetary. They become, and that may be the plan of the universe. I don't know. The plan of the universe may be just to create better and better intelligence, and we're
Yeah.
a passing let's say,
Yeah.
species to create these
Yeah.
AIs that will take over the world, the universe.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. One way or the other, it will happen. So let's hope for the augmented human intelligence, and let's install
yeah.
chips at some
Let's see.
point.
Let's see what's happened.
Perfect. To wrap up, Tosha, what will be one advice you can give to any entrepreneur in Portugal?
I think in Portugal and in general, the most important advice is do what you love. It's very easy in the world today where you consume so much information to just find opportunities everywhere. Opportunities are everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's easy to be convinced by the perfect world that we see, especially on social media. Everything is perfect. All the people who you are seeing and following, they are perfect. Everything they say, they know what they're doing. Their life is great, and your life is worthless. And so when you look at those opportunities, you think, oh no, AI is going to come here. I need to go after this opportunity or that opportunity. And we look at opportunities as financial opportunities, and we should look at opportunities as life opportunities. So is that something that I myself want to work with? So like, okay, there's a big opportunity in the pet market. Are you going after the pet market because there's a big opportunity? It's not going to work. You need to understand what you love to do. What are the things that make you come out of bed and go to work and not even call it work? Like I don't call what I do work. It's a saying that we say many times in the podcast, which is work life balance for us doesn't exist. For us, it's all life. Like, so I'm fortunate to have created the conditions to be working just because I want. So the typical word of work. And so that means that I'm constantly doing projects because I want to do them. Right. And
Yeah,
so I
enjoying
can
the game
focus
basically. Yeah.
focus on stuff that you love. But any person that even it's not in a stage where they can choose so easily, they can choose still. So choose something that is closer to what you want. Make a plan to go to somewhere where it will give you the tools so that you can eventually reach what you want to do. For example, a lot of young entrepreneurs come talk with me like 20, 21 years old, very, very young, 25 even. Oh, I want to create a startup. I need ideas. Do you have any ideas I can use for a startup? Like just that sentence, it says everything is, it's not the stage for you to create a startup. I always say the same thing, which is don't create a startup, just find a startup or find a company
Or-
that is that has someone that you see and you say, "Oh, this guy is amazing. The way he talks about the ideas that he has, I'm very connected with it." And go work with him. Go work with him for
yeah,
2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, whatever. Like you have so much time. Like we have a lot of time, and the ideas that we have because everything is so fast is that we don't have time. Oh, it's too late. I'm 30 years old. I'm 35. I'm 40. You still have a lot of time. And so just try to focus on things that you actually love doing. Because if you're doing something that you love, the probability of become successful is much higher,
yeah.
right? So there's a sentence I like to do, which is sometimes people say, uh, happiness comes with success. And I think it's exactly the opposite. Success comes
Mm,
with happiness. So if you are happy, the probability of being successful is very
yeah.
high. If you're just looking for success to be happy, maybe you can even be successful, but you'll continue to be miserable. And you can see many people like that. People have a lot of money, build big businesses, and still their life is in shadows because our life is not just to create businesses or make money. Our life is to live. We are humans, right? We're not AIs that are programmed to do something very specific. We
At
are
least for now.
exactly. So we can do a lot of stuff. And so do the stuff that you love. Everything, all the tools are out there. There are no excuses. The
Do
best,
you
you
love
know,
bureaucracy?
sorry?
Do you love bureaucracy or do you
No,
love killing bureaucracy?
no, what I love is to helping humans to build and fund businesses. So like that's
Yeah.
my line. And
Okay.
so I've been helping humans to fund, but also to build them because when we would invest in a company in Olisipo Way, we had the department to do all the boring stuff that they didn't need to do, like
Okay.
incorporate the company, do the accounting, etc.
Yeah.
Because I want to see passionate people working on what they love. And they will get
Okay.
completely miserable by taking care of contracts and paying taxes, right? And so
So your
because
passion on Comudel is not you're not passionate about killing the bureaucracy, but you're passionate about seeing entrepreneurs focusing on what they want.
exactly. My point is to empower you to do what you love, right? And I know that to do that, you cannot operate a company and not be legal. And so we need to make technology to do all of that for you so that you can focus on what you love.
I
Exactly.
like that approach. I like that approach.
Awesome.
And I want to try it. I want to try Comudel at some point. Whenever it's available, let me know and I will give it a try for
I
sure.
will. I will for sure.
Perfect. So thank you, Tasha. It was
Thank
a
you. Thank you.
pleasure to have you here. Let's stay connected and let's stay bringing value to Portuguese society, to European society,
We are already
and to
bringing
business
value just by
entrepreneurs.
having this conversation.
Yeah, yeah, and congrats for Bitalk. It's a podcast that every entrepreneur, every citizen, but especially entrepreneurs, should watch.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, and thank you guys for being here and for listening to this podcast. And hope to see you soon on the next episode. See you soon. Bye.